So you could have shortness of breath with no virus present. You could have anxiety and infection with no virus present. Now, if
Yeah,
the virus is present, well, then we're only compounding the issue in that case.
exactly. We actually could make society worse. If we
Yes.
spend all the time shaming people, they could get even, then their immune system is lowered because now I'm emotionally distraught and I'm using my energies to deal with emotions. I could actually get the virus and cause society to have even more problems. It
Yes.
doesn't, shame doesn't facilitate healing
Oh.
society. It actually, in my opinion, makes it worse. And we all shame because we all have it in us. I mean, it's been with our ancestors too, and it was used as a method of protection, right? You know, like this. But but we're missing a key component here. If we're trying to save the planet, let's save our souls. Let's save our mind and our heart and our body. Let's really look inside. What's this all about?
Hi, how you doing, Ron?
Great today. It's always fun to be with you, Denise.
It's fun to be with you too. I wanted to talk to you today about something interesting that's going on in the social arena right now. I wanted to talk to you about the social distancing and how, everybody's they're seeing it differently on how it ought to be done. And if someone is doing it differently than another, oftentimes there's this judgment or this shame or this anger or something that's going on. And I wanted to take pick at your brain a little and hear your thoughts about this social environment that we're experiencing right now.
Wow, pick up my brain. There's this little bird I feel right here.
That's me.
And obviously we want to talk about it in regards to the mind body dictionary and how that integrates into this, because it's so amazing how you can play with this. But before we get to that, the social distancing is needed currently and possibly in a year or 6 months, depending upon where you live, because of an outbreak of a virus, and so many people uh, were afraid, and government officials, because it overwhelmed our society. So the way they did it, obviously, is create the environment so that we can have less chance of overwhelming the hospitals by having too many people get ill at the same time with a deadly illness. And so the object is admirable, I think, right? Don't you think that the object's admirable to try to protect society from overwhelming? Because there's several places that did get overwhelmed. And so, however, the consequence of all this was when when your places, Denise, have you ever felt that in the social distancing, it was more than just social distancing, right? Have you ever felt some other emotion along with that? You.
Yes, for sure. Like you're saying, I do appreciate the positive intentions behind it, but oftentimes there is the other intentions that come along with it, which feel to me a lot like control. Sometimes I feel the anger, like I was saying, and that judgment, or the need to the control. I feel like comes from a place of fear more than a place of safety, and where the positive intention would be is for safety.
Yeah, yeah. That is the difference between a negative intention and positive intention is actually substantial. So some people, when they go to safety, they go into survival, and when they're in survival, they go to those negative emotions, and so of fear and anger and shutdown and excitability, anxiety, and on and on and on. A lot of those primal emotions that come from the brainstem that affective neuroscience promote and study and things like that. And we were walking along the street, my wife and I, and when we're outside on the street, we don't wear masks because the air's there, the virus doesn't last that long, and we just feel like it's fine. And my neighbor was there that we saw I mean, I'm sure she was 20 feet way over there. And we were just going to say hi. We weren't going to get close. We weren't going to go up and give her a hug or anything. And she saw us and she immediately went in the house. This very friendly neighbor only 2 or 3 months ago, suddenly it's just, people. And we both looked at each other like, well, we're not the enemy.
Yeah.
But what is happening in social distancing, everybody's the enemy. And, it's like even though you're in another state, oh no, she could have a virus and you could travel electronically and come and get us, right?
Yeah.
It is so much fear. It is, right?
Yeah.
And,
To the point of
and
being very illogical, like that situation. People aren't making sense with the intensity of fear, and you don't when you're afraid or
yeah,
anxious. You can't
fear,
logically think about it.
yeah, fear just makes these frontal lobes not function. Now, the logic is more in the frontal lobes, of course, than it is in your brainstem. It shuts down, survival starts to happen, and control and frustration and etc. So what what Denise and I have been talking about, how social distancing now has led not only to all those other emotions, but to shame. And that my daughter was in a place in the state she lives in where it was stated that, well, the parks are gradually opening up just a little bit at a time. So she finally was able to get out of her house because she was afraid to ever go anywhere. And in some countries and states, that they said no. I mean, in one country, more than one, but I was talking about this with another individual, and they could only have one adult out of the house. No other person could leave the house but one at a time. And so a lot of restriction. But anyway, in this situation, they went to the park. She went to the park with the kids, and part of the playground was a little bit blocked off like it was before, but it wasn't completely blocked off. She said, "Oh, the parks are open, so kids are playing," and and she noticed some people walking their dogs just really had that stare and sneered at him. Rather than coming up and saying anything in a nice way, they just sneered. And it was as if that the owner of the dog was mirroring the dog. you know, and she looked and she didn't even think about it. And then she just thought, oh, okay, well. And then another person came by, sneered that. And so there was shame coming now.
Yeah.
And she got back home and she looked it up and she goes, oh, no playground use. And she, I guess she should have known, obviously, but
Like
those
that.
people, instead of just saying, hey, it's great your kids get to play, and in a positive way, it's just the rule is this. No, it was just, I'm going to shame you.
Yeah. Well, and the interaction, the expectation would be if someone did say, hey, the rule is still no playgrounds, the expectation would be that then there would be conflict or there would be some sort of altercation between them because, she must know and she's choosing to, endanger the whole planet by letting her kids play on the playground.
And, I think that's a really good observation. I think that people are making assumptions that everyone knows everything and that you should know. Um, and what if I have the antibodies? What if I actually got tested for the antibodies for the virus and I didn't need to have a mask because I wasn't going to endanger anyone?
Yeah.
And there are people now that walk around that have the antibodies. They've been tested and they won't inflict any pain. So they really don't need a mask, but people don't know that. They're making an assumption that everybody is still the enemy.
Yeah.
And they don't communicate. I mean, I guess we could have a little sign, but it sounds like old Nazi Germany and all these other places where they have to have signs that don't judge me or you'll be put in, into lockdown and jail. And it's this constricted energy and everybody's afraid. And it's like World War II or World War I, or, it's like we're at war, but they're saying, well, we are at war. Well, no.
We're at war with ghosts.
Yes, a war with ghosts.
Yeah, we're running from ghosts.
Yeah. Our immune system, yes, it does have a T killer cell, an NK killer cell, has these immunoglobulins, antibodies, and yes, they go and destroy cells that are the enemy. Oh, sure, that is correct. But something happens in the mind, the heart, and the body if we're afraid of what's happening or if we're angry with what's happening.
Yeah,
And yes, anger does help the immune system be strong, but if it's this shame and guilt and frustration, it actually can cause more problems to the immune system than actually helps, correct?
for sure, for sure. Well, and so Ron, if someone there's the giving and the receiving of shame, right?
Uh-huh.
So there's the folks who are one, what would incite someone to say, I need to shame you for choosing to do something differently than what I believe should be done? What would incite someone to choose shame as a method of control, is the way I feel it when when it's been directed at me? And then what might be the consequences if someone receives that shame? Sure, observing it's one thing where it's like there's, oh yeah, they're sending shame, whatever, it's not, I don't accept. But
Well,
another thing is
that
it affects you.
let's keep both of those in mind and start with the receiver, okay? And then we'll go to the purpose, the one who gave the shame. So the intention of the shamer is we're going to keep the rule and everyone will be safe. That's the positive intention, of course. Of course, it may work, but let's go to the receiver and let's take the possibility that it could cause anxiety in the receiver. It could cause headaches. It could cause, and I looked this up earlier, I was just thinking about the Mind Body Dictionary. What possible conditions happens to the receiver? And infection, shortness of breath. Instead of, instead of positive results, we actually could be causing more problems. If a person took the shaming negatively, then all of a sudden our emotions take over and the emotions can actually affect our physical body. Let's go to
Well,
here.
that's only dealing with the shame. That doesn't even take into account if the virus was present, because it may not have been present on the playground or on the street,
Exactly.
and so you could have shortness of breath with no virus present. You could have anxiety and infection with no virus present. Now,
Yeah,
if the virus is present, well, then we're only compounding the issue in that case.
exactly. We actually could make society worse. If we
Yes,
spend all the time shaming people, they could get even, then their immune system is lowered because now I'm emotionally distraught and I'm using my energies to deal with emotions. I could actually get the virus and cause society to have even more problems. It
yes.
doesn't, shame doesn't facilitate healing
Oh,
society. It actually, in my opinion, makes it worse.
absolutely, absolutely.
It
Well,
does
worse,
make,
worse and all around, including the Nazi Germany stuff you were mentioning earlier.
using that as an example, because it could be in other countries and other histories, the Huns or whatever, who knows what else.
Tons, yeah, turning
Um,
against each other.
so if we went, for example, you mentioned shortness of breath, I could go to infection, but you go to the Mind Body Dictionary on the condition part, it says you are confusing what is important, what is urgent, and what is not necessary. You get mixed up between your senses and your emotions. You overreact to the fears and overwhelms of your life. Now, if I'm getting shamed, yeah, I'm go, oh, whoa, I could do that. Now, I could react and become defensive. But if I go into fear, suddenly, it's like holding my breath. And that sends a signal up to the brainstem, I'm in danger. And then the vagus nerve activates all the way down, affecting my lungs, affecting my adrenal glands, affecting my gut. And all of those affect the immune system, which makes me more vulnerable to illness, which makes me more vulnerable to the problem. Shaming actually could make it worse, not better. But when, the shamer's not thinking about, oh, I'm going to make it worse. They're actually thinking they're making it better, right?
Well, they're trying to make it better through a dark pathway. And that's partly why it's so confusing. You say, you're confused between what's important and what's necessary and what's not. Well, it is because someone's sending you this negative dark energy with a positive intention of saving the world. But what's happening is they're sending this dark energy that makes it feel like, oh wait, what's important here, what's okay, what's not okay, I don't, and it's actually saying shame by its definition is devaluing the individual.
Mhm.
You in and of yourself, your value so much less right now because you're not behaving according to what I believe, when the opposite is the intention, which is, hey, everyone on the planet is so important that we all need to be, at this super high level of confinement, and standard, this irrational standard actually, in order to maintain this quote unquote safety. But so we're going to use shame to enforce it. It's really an unfortunate result of something that could have been a very positive, maintained that positive intention.
Mhm. Mhm. I like how you actually put it in it, and high standard that actually doesn't exist, and it's all perception on each other's part.
Yes.
But and how I just saw this picture of shaming people so we can all live in peace and harmony. That's kind of weird.
Well, I did see a post on Facebook, someone who said, I can't wear a mask because I get panic attacks. I feel smothered and I go into a panic if I wear a mask. And she said, just have some compassion if I'm out and about. I mean, she didn't really say that, but have compassion for people is what she was saying. Have compassion for people who aren't wearing masks. You don't know why. So rather than being
Exactly. You don't know why.
yes.
Now, I know all of us need protection and all of us need support. At the
Mhm.
same time, all of us need understanding. And the shamer then, and we all shame because we all have it in us. I mean, it's been with our ancestors too, and it was used as a method of protection, right? Like this. But but we're missing a key component here. If we're trying to save the planet, let's save our souls. Let's save our mind and our heart and our body. Let's really look inside. What's this all about?
For sure, for sure. So what can we as far as a mindset goes, for the highest safety and the highest responsibility in a rational space where we can actually truly be supporting of each other's efforts, what can we do as a society to help with that, remove that social shame, what's
Well,
the individual's contribution?
that's an interesting question because while we're talking here, we are shaming the shamers.
Yes, exactly.
And we're actually using a form of judgment that says you shouldn't be that way, which is a form of shame. It's not intense. I'm not angry. I'm not going to survival in this moment. So it's more like a discrimination, right? I'm discriminating those who shame and those who don't. That's where we start. We start with our own internal mind is our purpose. What's behind that? What is my real goal? And if my real goal is safety at all costs, well, then it won't work. If we turn it around and we want to have communication be more important than safety, now that's really hard to imagine. How would that be more important? I mean, communication is more important than safety. Well, if we're driving, and and suddenly we changed the rules. What if instead of a red light was stop, we made red light go and we made green light stop? Now, what's wrong with that? I mean, red and green, they're just beautiful colors. I love red and I love green. Why did they pick red for that? What if I had the idea that we wanted to change that whole rule and the whole system? Because I really like red so much, that should be go, not. So we got together, a little meeting, and we changed all the lights of the city just because we should make red go and green stop. But what if we didn't tell anybody? It's for our survival. I mean, stop and go is to make sure the cars stop, but we didn't tell anybody.
Or what if we
Now,
were confusing about our message about when it's important?
yes,
How it's important.
how it's important, what's important. So we're not communicating, but that's what's for our survival. You see, if there's no real positive communication and we just have a rule, then we miss the whole point. Part of the safety is communicating in a positive way. And then it's not so much about the enemy out there, it's about the cooperation. It's about working together. That's actually the real goal. If
Yeah.
we work together, we can deal with the enemy much better than we can individually shaming and causing more enemies, because that's all that's happening. We are creating more and more enemies, which, by the way, actually, from the immune point of view, makes it worse.
Yeah.
We actually should be doing less social distancing so that we get exposed to different viruses, different bacteria, so our immune system becomes stronger and stronger. We are creating a network of possible problems where suddenly, as everybody gets back together, that virus may be gone, but now we have to reacclimate to each other. It's bizarre thinking.
Yeah.
We need herd immunity. We need to actually be communicating with, I think, 10 people a day eventually. So we should start going, okay, I'm going to be close to that person. How's my immune system handling it? That now go to 2 people and gradually building our immunity once again. Communicating at a body level, communicating at a heart level, and communicating at a mental level in a very positive way. Now, I put a lot into that in there. Denise, what do you think about all that?
That sounds a really great balance, like a really great balance between the safety and responsibility. There's a lot of people who are very much questioning the social distancing and the herd immunity, the way that we're doing it, not saying, hey, let's just pull out and do nothing, which I think is what a lot of people fear when people even broach the topic of doing it differently. Is, oh, now we're just not going to be safe. But if you consider it from like what you said, okay, approach it slowly, and then simultaneously understand that someone else is going to be a different time and space than you are, dealing with a different level than you are, and respecting each other where each other is at. Okay, I've interacted with 5 people in the last week or whatever versus someone who's interacted with 1 or 2, whatever. Just allow it so that there's this freedom for an openness for people to approach it differently. So obviously there's going to be a group who's very open to that freedom and very interested, and then there's going to be the group who is not, and we could be shamed even for talking about that. So when choosing, especially in states and in places where there's not a legal issue, to be socially engaging more and more and more often, and even encouraged for those places. How might someone handle it if they do have that shaming and the rejection or that impulse?
Well, that is an awesome question. What do you do when you get shamed? Which has happened to me many times for different reasons. Sometimes for my own ignorance, maybe like, oh, wake up. I mean, the positive of getting shamed is a wake-up call. Like, oh, okay, sorry, wake up. And if the other person who's doing the shaming can just, like, let go and say, oh, yeah, I've done that. The word punishment, and I talk about that in another video and talking, but punishment actually has a lot to do with being put into prison, which is what everybody got. Everybody was put in their own prisons in their own home, in their little jails, right?
Yeah.
So if someone wants me to be put in their perceived prison where I should be, I don't actually have to go into jail in my mind. Man's Search for Meaning, great book, and several others like that. And what I've used in my work for over 30 years is an understanding that no matter what someone thinks of me, I don't have to agree to it.
Yes.
I don't have to allow myself to take the label they have provided me. They could label me with almost anything they want. If I don't agree with that label, then great. I don't own it. But if I feel angry and I feel sad and I feel judgmental back and I become defensive, guess what? I've owned that label.
Yes.
Partially.
Yes.
So it's the label. And I even do this with conditions. What if I wake up in the morning and I was like, I have so much to do and I'm so tired. I want to exercise. Well, I've been labeling myself all of a sudden. I labeled myself fatigued, busy. I go, wait. I don't want those labels. I want the label of vitality. And I go, okay, what am I going to do with vitality? So I do the things that match the vitality label. It isn't a lie because I am vital. I am full of vitality. And I go and exercise. I go and drink some water. I move. I clear my thoughts. If I was listening to something and I feel a little confused and cluttered, oh, calm it down, turn it off, bring some quiet time. I do the things for the label that I choose to bring back to myself. So if someone says I'm bad, oh, okay. No, no, no. I'm positive and I'm respectful for others. And so I bring it back to the label that's appropriate for me and thank them for the acknowledgement because it's true. If I ran a red light, which I'm changing it back to red light is for stop. If I ran a stop sign or red light accidentally, which has happened, if I'm some spacey place and someone let me know, oh, thank you. The awareness is really important. I don't want to hurt anyone. I need to be clear. So is that helpful in what your question that you had?
For sure. It made me think of an experience I had with being shamed not too long ago, a year or so. And I remember one of the things that happened was it did feel like there was a lot of judgments, very specific, the this, that, the other, and they were labels and they didn't match me, but I accepted them on some level because I was like, wait a second, wait, that's not who I am. How can you not see who I really am? And one of the gifts of that experience, having to process it, was discovering and really truly aligning at every level within myself who I actually am and who I believe I am, because I had to filter out them versus me, which of course is an immunity concept. Okay, what's me and what's not me, right? And it really boosted me in a lot of ways as I processed it. It wasn't the easiest thing for some time, but as I did it, I became more and more clear with who I was, who I wanted to be, and then holding true to that rather than being bulldozed by just opinions that are out there.
And that was perfect because you said, wait, I don't need that label, using my words on that. But and what do I choose? I don't have to maintain that state, that frequency, that feeling, right? And you did it. You did it.
I did, yes. And it took time. I had to go through one by one, but it absolutely, and it really was quite a gift to go through that process and realize things I didn't even know were there. Actually, I didn't know that I had those limitations, and so develop myself that way. I feel like this could be a topic that we could talk about forever. There's a lot. I mean, shame in and of itself is a hot topic.
Right now, especially, but parents use it, couples and relationships, and that's a whole topic in itself. And viewing that, but we can turn social distancing is simply physical distancing social friendly.
Yes, that's cool. Yes. Yes.
Social friendly and still physical distancing. And the fear that they're sending out is sad, I think, because they could just say, hey, people, we just need do herd immunity a little different. We just have a little more distancing right now, physical, and you don't have to fear. Most people actually in a pandemic do not pass away, do not die.
Yeah.
It's only a very small percentage of the entire population. Yes, there's a certain percentage of those who catch that particular virus, but no, it is a small percentage. It's so we don't get overwhelmed. It's so that we do this, responsibly. That's all. It's just responsibility. We don't have to fear. Build up your immune system with positive feelings, with positive affirmation, positive actions. That's why the mind-body dictionary is there, to bring awareness and to bring transformation. Let's do this together. That's what it's about, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I sure appreciate your insights, Ron, sharing that with us, and super interesting to consider the implications of our not perfectly aligned motives. And then hopefully aligning them more clearly in the future. So thank you so much.
And thank you for your insights. It's absolutely wonderful, and it's great, and all the work you do to keep this wonderful thing going for a lot of people.